All right, perfect. So welcome to a Hunchly desktop training session. My name is Justin Seitz. I lead the team at Dark River Systems, the folks who build Hunchly. And we're going to walk through kind of from the beginning to pretty much the end of Hunchly desktop, including a little bit of Hunchly mobile. We're not going to cover every single angle. We have a huge knowledge base with a bunch of tutorials and walkthroughs that you can go and view at your own leisure, but we are going to cover a ton of things, and I'm going to throw in kind of a lot of how I use Hunchly in my workflow or how I approach using it. And of course, it's designed to be interactive, so please ask questions. You can use the question and answer box. I won't read your full name out or anything like that, but it does help because often other people have the same questions, or it'll create conversations or even things I can do on screen that can help to illustrate what we're covering. So hopefully you can see my screen right now. And what you should be looking at is the Hunchly desktop. The current version of Hunchly is 2.2.6. And Hunchly is a two-part software system. There's the part we're looking at right now, which is the Hunchly dashboard. This is where we manage our cases and our materials that we've collected, as well as kind of use some of our investigative tools. And then the other part is what lives in our browser. And when I say browser, I mean any Chromium-based browser. So that's Chromium itself, Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, or the privacy-focused Brave. So Hunchly does not support Firefox or Safari. Now, the part of the component in the browser's job is to collect every web page that you browse to and send it back to the dashboard for processing. So the idea is that when you have Hunchly along for the ride, Hunchly is going to do the job of a lot of the documentation and a lot of the preservation without interfering with how you think as an investigator or without kind of getting in your way. So to get things started, really the first bit of training and probably the most critical part only takes about 2 or 3 minutes. And this will really train you on how do you actually just get going with Hunchly and use it for what it's designed for. So it only takes a couple minutes and a few mouse clicks. Now, when you're looking at the dashboard, the first mouse click that we need to do is up here, we need to add a new case. So this is important to keep both as a researcher or journalist to keep your materials together and organized, but for law enforcement, it's critical. Or if you're working in investigations of any kind that can end up in court, it's critical that you have case separation. So today we'll investigate me. And we're going to add a new case name called Justin Seitz. I'm just going to hit enter. Cool, that's it. That's all we need to do in the dashboard. We're done here. So let's flip open the browser. And we'll head, well, before I do actually, I'm just going to show you this. My start page already loaded. Sorry, I cleared my cache and this had me fooled for a second. First, what we need to do is just take a look at the Chrome extension. And the other couple of mouse clicks are important. So the first is this capture switch. When we turn Hunchly off and on, we can tell the difference here by looking at the Chrome extension again. This is Hunchly disabled, and it's back when we click it on. So this is turning the automatic capture on and off. All right, so you want to make sure it's turned on and that you have the right case selected. So that's it. New case, turn the capture on, pick the case. That's it. And now that I'm no longer fooled by this start page, we can actually teach you how to do evidence preservation with Google, with Hunchly, sorry. We'll go to Google. And just the act of browsing to this new URL triggers a capture, preserves the page, hashes it, timestamps, and stores it all on disk for you. So that's it. Literally just doing that. So you can, as an investigator, continue to do your work without thinking about having to take screenshots, without having to worry about making sure you have the time right or the URL. Hunchly is doing this all for you. And when Hunchly preserves a page, it's preserving all of the images, the text, the links, everything that you see here is getting stored and preserved all in one file. So if we switch back to our dashboard, we're now going to see that we've collected a bit of data. We've got the dashboard reflecting some of the numbers here. And where you'll spend a lot of time is down in this history view, which is the exact trail of every page that you browse to. So I'm going to just take a look at our Google search result. And this is important. So this is our page review screen. And what we're looking at right now is the permanent copy of the page. So this is actually being loaded off of my hard drive, not being pulled from a website. There's no internet connection required. This is what it's always going to look like in this Hunchly case. So you have your own little Wayback Machine that you can go back and take a look at exactly what you looked at on that day. This, of course, is important when you're looking at particularly tricky targets that might be deleting content or covering the tracks. Of course, you can always go back and take a look at what's going on. Okay, perfect. So someone is just saying that they have no audio. Can someone just let me know if you can hear me loud and clear? If you can't, if there's no audio, is there? Let me just make sure that other folks can hear as well, because on my end, it's showing that everything is working. All right. Yeah, cool. Everybody can hear me. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Perfect. 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 Thanks. Awesome. So audio is working. Great. So nice thing is it's always going to look like this. Now, the other cool thing is that if there's deleted content, particularly links, by clicking a link in one of your captures, it will actually take you to where it links to. So this can be really useful if someone's deleted a social media post and you can only see part of a link, but the link itself is still active. This is really useful. Now, again, Hunchly has not preserved that, that Twitter link behind it or anything like that. It's just keeping the link active for you. All right. Now, the other thing is that when we expand the information panel at the top, this is really all of the critical stuff that we need to know if we were ever being cross-examined or had to sit in a witness box in court. And really what we need is, what did we see, which is the content, where did we see it, the URL, when did we see it, right, the time. Now you'll note that we have two timestamps here. One is the date and one is the updated. So the date is when we first landed on the page and Hunchly detected that it had loaded and does its initial capture. Now the updated timestamp is anytime that page gets updated, Hunchly will trigger an updated capture on that page, and it will update this timestamp. Now, because Google.com loads the entire page all at once, those timestamps don't change. But as you can imagine, scrolling down through Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, as more content gets loaded into the bottom of the page, Hunchly will detect that and update that capture. All right. Now, the last piece is really important for those that are going to be submitting evidence to court or preparing disclosure packages. The hash, what it's going to tell you is what this file is on disk, so that when you need to submit it to that other party, to that third party, that the act of transmitting on that page did not alter the content. So what that hash is not telling you is, it's not telling you that an investigator has tampered with something, or there isn't ways of circumventing this. But what it will tell you is a court-accepted way of transferring evidence from you to the other party and saying that this is the copy of the file that I have, and they can do the same thing on their end. Okay, so again, all of this is covered in our knowledge base. It's at support.hunch.ly. Now, I'll take a quick pause. Are there any questions at all that I can help to answer at this point? Anything related to page capture or review? And I will just take a look at the Q&A box. Nothing yet. All right. Just filtering a few out here. Okay. All right. Does page capture videos? No, page capture does not capture videos. And the reason for that is to kind of stay in line with how the large social media platforms have treated other extensions. So we don't do any video extraction or downloading. That being said, in my previous webinar, if you go to our YouTube channel, if you just go to YouTube and punch in Hunchly, you'll see there's a channel. In my last webinar and the one before that, I show tricks, and there's open source code where you can use Hunchly to automatically trigger the download of YouTube videos. So it uses Hunchly data forwarding and then automatically pulls down the YouTube video as well as all of its closed captioning. And then in the next webinar I did, where I do some processing on the video itself. Anyway, so it doesn't do it directly, but there are definitely workarounds for videos, and we'll cover some of those workarounds when we get to the attachment section. All right, cool. Doesn't look like there's any other questions. I'll keep on going here. All right, nope, don't want to add a new case. Cool. So now that we've done page capture, page review, we can actually start getting into some of the investigative and documentation tools that we have. The first and probably my favorite is the selector system. So the selector system is this very nice way of having Hunchly kind of deal with keeping track of all the little pieces in your investigation, things like email addresses, names, usernames, anything that's useful to your investigation that you want Hunchly to track for you. So how you add them, they're very much like keywords. They are exact matches. So for example, a name is a good selector, Justin Sites, since that is the subject of this investigation, we can add that. And then for example, we could also add social media usernames, so jms.py. Now, by adding them, the first thing we notice is that this count has gone up to 1. And what that's telling us is that it's actually searched backwards through our case and has discovered this page here that has both Justin Sites and jms.py on it. So this is actually quite useful. Now, maybe not so useful when you have 2 pages, but when you've been investigating something for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and you enter in a new email address or some new piece of information, when Hunchly searches backwards through your case and it comes back and says, hey, you actually have 4 hits, well, that should pique your interest right away because it means you encountered that interesting information at some point in the past. And you didn't know it was useful back then because you didn't possess a crystal ball, but now you do. So one of the cool things you can do is just click a selector and immediately it'll filter the history view. So you can just look at, okay, what are those new matches and what do they mean? So that's the first cool part about selectors. Now the other part is what Hunchly's going to do is now that we've entered those selectors in, as we're browsing around, it's going to be tracking hits to any page that has references to Justin Sites or jms.py, both in the visual web page itself, but also in the underlying source code and JavaScript. So it's actually scanning all of the source code everywhere you go, looking for those selectors. So you can imagine it's like this little robot doing view source on every page and trying to find them. Now, normally I would turn on selector highlighting, which would have the selectors highlighted. You can do that in your settings panel in Hunchly. But alternatively, lots of people also use just the Chrome extension. Right here, you can see there's a red badge there now with the number 2 in the middle. And if we click on it, we can see selectors has now got 2 in the badge. And we can see the selector hits that we have here. Okay, so again, in your settings panel, you can go in and test out the various flavors of selector highlighting. All right, but the nice thing again is that I don't have to think about these things. Or for example, I've definitely just got fatigued and been working on complex cases, and there's a lot of names and email addresses and usernames and all kinds of stuff going on all over the place. And Hunchly is actually picking up stuff that I was just too tired to notice. So this is incredibly useful. Now, if you're ever investigating groups of people, another little trick I'll do is I'll add everyone. So for example, if Esme Sites is a known associate, that's my cat, where this is useful, for example, is you can actually click both of these names. And now what this filtering does is it's saying, only show me pages where both Justin Sites and Esme Sites were present. This may indicate that, like, if it's open corporates, it might mean that they're both on the board of directors for a company. It could mean it's a Facebook page where both of them are chatting back and forth about something. But this is kind of neat because we can actually do a little bit of analytical work just by using selector filtering. All right. And again, they are exact matches. There are no wildcards or regular expressions supported. Any questions about selectors? My lovely wife just brought me Tim Hortons, so you know I'm popping that thing open right now. Yeah, you know that sound. All right. Nothing? Okay, cool. Let's move on before I start slipping Timmy's. Tags. So if you have to produce materials for court, this will be really important for you to pay attention to because this will be a major lifesaver. Tags are a way for you to keep your cases organized, and particularly when you have to do disclosure, if you've got 1,000 pages captured and you haven't organized them in some way, when you need to produce something for a district attorney or crown prosecutor or whatever the prosecutors are called in your jurisdiction, The problem becomes is it's going to be a nightmare for you to kind of dig through everything and pull them out one by one, or to produce 1,000 pages is going to overwhelm that attorney. So the nice thing with tags is that it really doesn't take much for muscle memory. All we want to do is create some general categories. So for example, a general case, I might say, yeah, social media is pretty general. I'll use that fairly frequently. So I can add that as a tag. And then I might have some more case specific things. So let's say it's like a white collar, like a fraud case. So big ticket assets. So boats, cars, houses, right? So I'll have these. And again, I might find something that is tagged both social media and big ticket assets, right? It might be they put a picture of their boat on Facebook, for example. So there's a few ways that we can tag pages. The first is we can do it in the dashboard. So we can do it retroactively. If we ever captured something and we're like, oh, you know, this is important, I want to make sure I mark this with the social media tag, we can do it here. We can untag them as well. And the other thing too is that you can mark them as important. So this is kind of like a super tag that moves pages off on their own. Okay, also gives them a little gold star. And filter them here. Okay, so you can do this all on the dashboard just by in the page review screen, just go into the page and you can do it from within there. Nice. But also from the browser, as you're browsing around and viewing materials, as you encounter things, and this is often what I'll do, so if I find the target's actual social media profile, I'll then go in and quickly tag it. So I'll just go into tags and I'll say social media. And if it's important, like I found some actual damning materials or something I know that's going to go in a report, I'll give it that gold star right there. All right, only time you'll see it beside my name. And yes, I make that joke every single webinar. I'm so sorry. All right, cool. So that's tagging. But the cool thing is that later you're going to see when we do exports, I can just export all the posts tagged social media to PDF and HTML in one fell swoop. Or if I want to do case review, I can say, just show me all the social media posts and I can work through them one by one in the page review screen. But I can also get interesting and say, all right, show me everything tagged social media that also had jms.py as a selector, and there was nothing, right? So you can start to mix and match tags and selectors as well. This is kind of a auxiliary, more analytical feature of tags and selectors, but one I will totally do, especially if I get stumped on something, I feel like I can't seem to get out of a rut. I'll just start like mixing and matching tags and selectors and seeing what kind of pages pop out. I often find those little weird exercises end up just breaking me out of that rut and keep me moving in the investigation. All right. Any questions about tags? I'm going to mute so you don't have to listen to me slurping this medium dark roast double. So if you have any questions, ask away because I'm going to take a big slurp. Oh man, it's like catnip for Canucks. That's so good. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to anyone who's angry right now that I'm drinking this. I don't normally brag about my Timmies, but whew, that's a gooder. All right, no questions. It's a very quiet crowd today. It's okay. It's dead summer, and if you live anywhere near Saskatchewan, it is blistering hot. So hot. All right, let's move on. Let's do all clear lunch. Hey, no problem. Julio, I think you're on every single webinar I've ever done in the history of Hunchly, so I'm gonna forgive you for eating lunch during this one. All right, cool. Let's move on to notes. So again, this is something I use a lot, and I know like particularly journalists too. For example, Craig Silverman at ProPublica, he uses them heavily as well when he's doing research. They're just a great way to kind of keep track of what you're looking at, add context to what you're finding, and in general, just build a timeline of stuff that's kind of important or things you might want to report on or might go into an investigative report or affidavit at some point. It's also worth noting that our report builder currently only supports notes, and you'll see later caption images. This is going to change soon, but if you're going to use our report builder, even just kick out intern reports, just think about notes as the primary way of getting content into it. All right, so how do we take a note? So again, we can retroactively take notes on content we've already captured by going into our dashboard, and we can pick the spot. So again, keeping in mind, here's another little nuance, right? You got to scroll a lot of content into view these days just to get those images to pop in. It's to conserve bandwidth on their end. All right, neat. So get the content you want that's interesting. Maybe it's Camille here, and I can hit this plus button right here that says add note. It's going to allow me to add some text. Just say Justin's LinkedIn profile confirmed. All right, I'm going to hit add. Now what's going to happen is Hunchly is going to take a screenshot of the viewable area in the browser panel and take the text I added, timestamp the whole thing, and link it to that capture. So if we go back to our notes panel here, you're going to see there's the screenshot, there's my text linked back to the capture. All right, perfect. So the other thing we can do is take them directly in the browser, which is where I take 99.9% of my notes. I rarely actually do retroactive notes, or yeah, it's pretty rare. So how we take a note in the browser when we're out investigating is we just right click in the Hunchly 2 menu, we select take note, same deal. So we can say live view of profile, hit save. Same thing. So Hunchly's going to take a screenshot of viewable area, store that text, link it to a full page capture, and you're going to see it show up here. Cool. Really nice. Now, again, I use these a ton as I'm going. I find having more notes, not less, to be better, and you can export them to PDF if you want by using the export option here. You can also filter them. So if, for example, you're like, oh, well, there was that thing on Facebook or whatever, right? You can use this filter bar to kind of quickly filter them down so you can see what you were looking for, and that's useful. So again, I use these a ton, and I definitely encourage it as well for you. If it doesn't if you find it interferes with your process, then don't. But for me, I found it easy to kind of integrate. I guess maybe because I built Hunchly like 5 or 6 years ago, and I'm pretty used to it now. All right, cool. Any questions about notes? Anything else that I can help to clarify up to this point? We're going to be like crushing this. We're going to be out of here in record time today. Ah, very good question. So are there any shortcuts for the notes? Yeah. So if you go into, that's an awesome question. Go into Chrome extensions. And in Hunchly 2, we go to details. And where are the keyboard ones? Let's go over here. Keyboard shortcuts, sorry. All right, cool. So Hunchly does support keyboard shortcuts. So to take a note, we have Alt-A. That's not a great one. I actually will often say like Shift-Control-Up. And then capture too. So you can actually put Hunchly kind of in a manual capture mode. And so what I'll do here, if I have to use manual capture, is I'll go Shift-Control-Down. So that anytime I need to capture, I can just go Shift-Control-Up for a note, down for a capture. Not everybody likes short keys. Now, so, oh, there's actually, look at this. There's a toggle auto capture one now. Oh, I didn't even know that one existed. Look at this, we're all learning stuff. I'm gonna make that one Shift-Control-Right. Cool. Let's see how this all works now. Let's go back to our Google result. Here. All right, now I'm gonna go Shift-Control-Up. There's my note. Cool. Now the new one, Shift-Control-Right. Oh, look at that, you can turn it off from your keyboard now. I'm gonna go give my team a high five after this one. So anyway, generally, yes, I use the keyboard shortcuts. So that's awesome. Feel free to go in there. Yes, nice, it's awesome, right? We all learned something today. Oh, Shift-Control, I'll just turn that back on with my keyboard again, don't mind me. All right, cool. Any other questions I can help to answer? All right, cool. Let's carry on. This is why we ask questions. We all learn things. Images. So Hunchly handles images in a few different ways. The first is when you browse to a web page, every image on the page is extracted, hashed, and stored separately. So in your Hunchly data folder, okay, generally found in Documents, Hunchly Data, you're going to see a Photos folder. And this is literally every image we've encountered since we've started this demo. Okay, icons, whatever else, whatever it can find for images, it's going to lay out for us. Now, for law enforcement, this is really useful because you can upload these in bulk to your image processing tools like Griffi or Giro or even, EXIF Viewer, whatever you're using. So this is really useful. There's also the hashes, which are SHA-256, which are useful if you're working in internet crimes. So all very useful stuff. Now, the other thing is, as part of that extraction, we actually examine every image for EXIF metadata. And if there is EXIF metadata present, we bring it forward here in this All Images with EXIF. So we can see the picture of my mug here. We click on that blue EXIF badge, and we can see some data here. So date and time digitized is allegedly 2015. This is accurate. I say allegedly because this metadata can be manipulated. So as an investigator, you got to kind of go and corroborate or try to figure out whether it's accurate. Indeed, I had a BlackBerry in 2015. That is why I look so sheepish, like, oh my God, I'm taking this with a BlackBerry and there's metadata in here. How bad? So it's really nice because this data is also searchable. So Hunchly has quite a powerful search engine built into it. So if I do a keyword search for BlackBerry, I'm not going to get any web pages back, but what I am getting back is an image because we were able to find the term BlackBerry embedded in the EXIF metadata. All right, very nice stuff. Now, if you don't care about any of this, you don't want any of this, that's totally fine. You can actually go in your settings and you can disable extract images. So it's set to on by default. You can turn it off and hit save. Hunchly will run a lot faster. So it will consume less resources because it's not examining every image. Now, if you ever want a test site to like get a good sample of the types of metadata you can get, go to arstechnica.com, and for whatever reason, and again, I'm not sure if this is like every Conde property or what, but if you browse there and then just sit and wait in your dashboard, oh, there already, there it's loaded with EXIF metadata, tons. So tons and tons of stuff here. If there's ever a time where we pull out GPS coordinates for you, we'll provide a Google Maps link at the top. None of these have Google GPS coordinates in them, but it's a great place to go to just see various samples of, copyright notices, and sometimes it's like right off of journalists' cell phones, all that kind of stuff. So very useful, very neat, good example, and easy to browse to. All right, so perfect. That's images, what's done automatically. Now, the other thing you'll note here is this Caption Images view. So what we can do when we're out browsing around is we can take a look at an image, and for example, we can right-click on it, and in the Hunchly 2 menu, we can say Add Caption to Image. So again, depending on what you're investigating and researching will depend on why you would want to caption something. If we're sticking kind of with a white-collar fraud investigation, it might be like some picture of an asset, like a boat or whatever. So like a bunch of laptops, and hit save. So Hunchly's going to isolate that image for you, bring it out. It's also going to make it available in our report builder later. So what we enter there, and of course, if there's any EXIF metadata present, there isn't in this one. But if there is, then we'll bring that forward as well, and it will also end up in the report builder. Okay, cool. I will just take a look here for our questions. I got to do a little cleanup on the questions, and then I'll get to the new one. All right, so could you show us how highlight selectors works? Yes, and there is a bug in Hunchly right now that's actually a bit of a nasty one. So normally what I would do is I would demonstrate how to add selectors from the browser by right-clicking Hunchly to store text as selector. However, this causes a crash in the back end, so we miss something in QA. We miss this, so don't do this. So that's why I'm avoiding it in our demos. There's also a slight bug in the highlighting, but let me demonstrate this to you. So highlight selectors is this here. If we can counter a bug, it's okay. Now there's two options. So on is what I typically use if I'm not producing materials for court. That's because by setting it to on, it's going to highlight the selectors and it's going to store the highlighting in your evidence permanently. Okay, so if you're a journalist and stuff, this might not be a big issue because it's going to kind of help call your attention and help you with research later. But for law enforcement, you definitely don't want to do that. You want on, remove before storing. So it's just going to lay the highlighting on over top temporarily. Before it gets stored on disk, it removes it. Okay, so I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to hit save. I'm actually going to kick the browser to make sure that everything is actually hunky-dory here. There you go. So that's selector highlighting. Okay, so here on a Google search result page, not super useful, but you can imagine like when you start scrolling down those big long forums or like Facebook walls and whatever, right? Like it's super useful. But other times you're not even going to see anything visually, but Hunchly's going to light up. So you're going to go into that page review screen in the dashboard and start digging around in the source code of the page, trying to figure out where that selector hit was. Because sometimes you'll get a selector hit in the JavaScript and you're not going to see any highlighting or nothing. You're not going to have any indicator that there was anything going on. But up here, it's going to be lit up, and you'll have to kind of dig around in your dashboard to find out what's up. All right, cool. Any other questions I can help with? Take a brief pause here. All right, doesn't look like it. Let's move along. Talk about attachments. So attachments are a way for us to get things like video into Hunchly. Also, any other file that we want that's really not web content, right? So documents or virus samples or PowerPoint presentations, whatever it might be. So there's a few different ways that we can do this. The first is we can add them manually. So here we can click add. We can pick a file from our hard drive, hit open. This is really useful because what it's going to do is a byte for byte copy. So it's going to copy the file into your Hunchly case. It's going to say added manual, and it's also going to give you a hash, right? So you've got a little automatic file hasher. Now, the other cool thing is that we can annotate it. So in this case, it's Justin bottle feeding baby raccoon. Julio's seen this picture about 1,000 times by now. And it's important to note that when you click on the attachment here, and this warning comes up, like clicking OK means that if that's a virus sample, this is going to get executed, right? In this case, it's just an image. That's Smudge. That's my thumb. And she was obviously quite tiny. But it's just mindful of some operational security stuff. Like just be mindful when you're clicking around on stuff in there. So that's option number one. Option number two, which is the option I always use, is to have attached downloads turned on as well. So attached downloads is in your settings panel right here. We're going to set this to on, and I'm going to go down and save. Now, what's going to happen, and there's a weird bug in Chrome with Word documents, I don't know why, but what's going to happen is when we download files, and again, I'm going to go file type, actually let's go PowerPoint, and we'll go raccoons. As a file gets downloaded, Hunchly detects the download if Chrome doesn't misbehave here. Oh, that's a big one. And what's going to happen is Hunchly is automatically going to copy that file in, hash it, tell us where we downloaded it from, and make it available in our case. But again, Chrome has had some weird bugs lately. For example, Word documents, for me, not all Word documents download. It's like the click doesn't register for some reason. It's really strange. All right, let's go see if that actually worked or if Chrome was being misbehaving. It was misbehaving. Let me punt it. So you can see like it's not actually like sending a signal that it downloaded anything. Or when you click things, I'll just show you what I mean. File type docx raccoons. So for me, lately, unless they've updated it, you see that? It just doesn't want to do it, but it works fine in other browsers. Really weird stuff. Right? So now that one worked. Anyway, so if you run into issues with Chrome downloading stuff recently, then just let me know. That one worked. So and it sent the signal properly that it had completed the download. We can see here, there's the file location hash. We can open that document if we want. Now, that's the second way, really useful, particularly useful if they need to download video. So what I use is a lot of the techniques in OSINT Combine. Where did that URL go? Oh, right, I cleared my history. Let me use my other browser. OSINT Combine with the save here, and I'll just send it to everybody in chat so you have it. I show everyone this URL. This will teach you how to download stuff without tools. So how to just use your browser to download video. So it's great because it's kind of a little bit more live off the land kind of thing. So really useful for video downloading. Now, the other thing is sometimes we do have to switch to mobile when we're doing our investigative work, just for whatever reason. It might be that we have to use a native mobile app. It might be that there's just no other way of using it, or a whole bunch of other reasons. Now, also, if you're on here from law enforcement, at times you might have a victim or witness who can only send you stuff, or their stuff is only on a mobile device. And often they're not big fans of getting forensic acquisitions. So this is where the Hunchly Mobile app is useful. It is free to use and download for anyone, as well, I'll show you shortly, victims and witnesses can use Hunchly Desktop for free as well. We don't even need their email address or anything. Now, the nice thing is with Hunchly Mobile, and a small distinction is that it is not a web preservation tool, but it is more like a little Rubbermaid container so that you can move evidence around securely and then bring it into Hunchly Desktop. So I'm going to tap the mobile app, okay? And again, available on Android and iOS. Just search for Hunchly in both of the stores. I'm going to tap New Case. For case title, I'm going to say Justin Sites Mobile. So I just usually name it the same case name and then add mobile. I go Add Case, and now I can add a new case file. So for example, I'm going to tap Add File. I'm going to pick a photo. I have a screenshot. This is often what victims and witnesses are sending. Our screenshots, perfect. I can add a note to it, just saying, you know, Google screenshot. We have instructions again. Oh, why? I put a sad face there or crying. No, I'm not. No, oh, now I'm happy. My thumbs are too big. Okay, here we go. Here we go. I can get out of the screen without screwing it up. Yes. I have 8 hands. I'm sorry. So the nice thing is too is we kind of have instructions on like how to get people when they're providing as victims or witnesses, or if you're receiving information from a source as a journalist, just how to kind of organize things for people. You'll see why it's important shortly. So I'm going to save this file to case. Boom, there it is. It's in my Hunchly case. And I can just keep doing this, adding screenshots, adding videos, anything, files, documents, whatever I want. Now, when I'm ready, I can tap the hamburger menu in the top right. So in the top right, look where the X is, right? Now it's a hamburger menu. There we go. And now I'm going to tap about midway down, Export Justin Sites Mobile. I'm going to airdrop it to my MacBook. Cool. And we're just going to switch back over to our VM. Nice. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I'll close that too. All right, now I just need to grab the case and drop it in. All right. Hoya. There we go. So there's our mobile case. Now, there's one nice thing right out of the gate, is that it also includes an embedded report. So you don't even need Hunchly on the other side of this. Again, if you're receiving stuff from a source or whatever, this report is actually quite useful. You can just open it up with like any one of your Chromium compatible browsers. So I'll open it with Chrome, go to attachments, and now that victim, witness, or sources attachments are all here. You have a timestamp of when they added it. It came in from the Hunchly Mobile app. You got a hash of the file, a description of what it is, plus the file itself that you can view, okay? Now, this is super useful, and we also have a website that's just digital evidence guide.com that gives guidance on using our tools for free for victims and witnesses, both from, we consulted with lawyers and law enforcement people all over the world on providing some instructions. We do not encourage victims and witnesses or even sources to do anything without guidance first. But the tools are free. They're designed with victims and witnesses in mind first. But this is really useful. And again, for me, I know it's much nicer now when I have to capture stuff on mobile and I can just shove it, as you just saw. Like, it's very easy for me to just airdrop it back to my laptop or my investigative machine and pull it back in. Now, to actually get the file back into our Hunchly case as attachments, apparently I've selected everything. So what I can do here is up in the top left, I can go add case, import case. The procedure is identical for importing a Hunchly desktop case, so you'll see that shortly. So I'm going to just add this to an existing case because it is part of my Justin Sites case. We're going to pick Justin Sites Mobile, hit import. It's already done. Okay. And down here, we can see our mobile import. We can see the note that the person left and a hash of the file, and we can carry on investigating. All right. Cool. So I have a question. How did you get the mobile export onto your Windows machine? So I airdropped it from my iOS device to my MacBook, and my MacBook hosts the VM. So I just then copy and pasted it into the VM, drag and dropped it into the VM. Yeah. So, or you could use a shared folder. There's a bazillion different ways. You don't have to use AirDrop, you know, but that's what I use when I'm doing demos because it's just faster for me to move stuff around that way. All right. Cool, cool. We got about 19 minutes left. Any questions? Anything I can help to clarify at this point? All right, another question. Are you testing in Geniemotion? No, I personally have not done any testing in Geniemotion, but I'm not sure. Honestly, also, like, if you work for a victim organization or you're in law enforcement, we'll give you the source code to it, to the mobile app, like, and instructions on how to build it. So you could, like, do whatever you need with it. So we've already provided it to one nonprofit so that they could build an app for victims, specifically victims. So yeah, we intend to likely open source the whole thing, but we've already given it away for once for free. So, all right, another question. What if it's a large export zip file? How do you would recommend getting it to a PC from a witness securely? Again, I don't provide guidance on secure evidence transfer. That one is like, it's really case by case, depends on the witness, depends on where they live. There depends on your department policies. Yeah, there's just so many things. So, like, I think that, like, you know, the most obvious way to me is, like, if a victim if it's a large export, they can just plug their phone into a device to transport the export itself, as opposed to a forensic acquisition. But again, like, department to department, case to case, jurisdiction to jurisdiction, it will be different. The big thing is like making sure that you know, the victim or witness is not at risk just installing Hunchly, right? That's step one. So after that, the secure transfer of things is outside of our bailiwick. Okay. All right, cool. No problem. Good to see you too. Great. Cool. Well, let's move right along. Talk about searches. So this is kind of a convenience panel, or the panel where Justin gets frustrated while doing research and gets stuck. So what it's doing is it's looking at all of the major search engines and social media platforms and just what keywords you're running into them. So what I personally find it useful for is, number one, it allows me to kind of take a look and see if I have some search bias, meaning that often I will literally capture hundreds of pages and never have used a different search engine than Google, right? Which is just not good investigative practice. So right away in this investigation, if I'm stuck, I'll kind of come in and look and go, everything says Google. How about I run Justin Sites in Yandex, because, and I close the browser, but we'll go to Yandex. And the reason why I do this or recommend doing this, or at least to break out of my investigative rut, is that, of course, all of these search engines use different algorithms to score and send back content. So right away, the top result on Yandex is actually a pirated copy of my book. So that link wasn't even present in the Google search results. So there's already stuff available to us just by changing the search engine. that we didn't have before. So it's a great way to kind of break out of that rut, or to kind of get out of investigators' block. So that's how I use it. Again, it's just looking at all the major search engines and social media platforms and bringing them forward to you here. All right. Any questions on that one? It's pretty straightforward. Nothing. Any other questions? Origins of the universe? Anything? No? All right. We'll carry on. Let's talk about data. So in this tab, what we're showing to you is little pieces of data that we were able to extract from the pages you've browsed to. So what we're looking for are little patterns like tracking codes, for example. So we extract Google Analytics codes everywhere we go. And as we encounter them, we bring them forward to you in this view. So the idea here is to kind of give you leads, or at least give you something you can copy and paste into some other tool. Like if you're running, you know, Analyze ID or public www, you might drop that in. You can take a look at email accounts and say, okay, here's Jim Salter at arstechnica.com. Maybe I'm going to run that into Scope now or whatever. So this is useful. We definitely, I personally love this because sometimes it really brings out stuff that I wouldn't have found otherwise. And then you can also do a bit of analytical work where you can say, okay, hit this as a filter and show me all of the pages that had that tracking code. So for example, if you have like a pile of hits on a tracking code, you probably want to go filter and then look here and see, like, are there a bunch of different domains? Is this showing me like someone owns multiple domains or web pages that I didn't know about? There's a connection here somewhere. You can also then start like playing with tags and selectors over top of it. So that extracted data can be really useful. You can also export it and other tools. So for example, Spiderfoot HX, the Spiderfoot cloud scanner, has a specific Hunchly data importer to pull in that data that you've extracted so that you can kick off scans with it. Okay, so that's the data tab. Cool stuff. Any questions? It's just regular expressions we're doing behind the scenes, by the way. It's no fancy AI, machine learning, or anything like that. Just regular expressions. Good old-fashioned regex. All right. Cool. Let me take a look here. All right. Apologies if this is a stupid question, Justin. There's no such thing for starters. Trust me. If you've ever seen, I'm the one who does the dumb things on webinars, not you guys. Can Hunchly be used to capture information on onion URLs? Yeah, absolutely. So Hunchly can totally be taken along for the ride. We do have a dark web guide on our website on how to do this. So in this VM, what I typically do is, this is my less secure setup, but what you can do is you can configure Chrome to use Tor behind the scenes. So I have not tested this in a while, and Tor browser might need an update. So if this starts to go pear-shaped quick, then we'll have to abandon it. But let's fire up Tor browser here. I better find an onion to browse to. I usually use like the Facebook onion or something. New York Times onion address. Did Tor browser load yet? There it is. All right. So I'm going to minimize that. Don't close it, because it should have opened up a little listener on the background. And here's my Chrome Tor shortcut. Now, it's a shortcut because in the actual shortcut itself, in the target field, I'm going to paste this to y'all. No, I'm not, because it won't come out of the VM with me. That's totally fine. Copy that. It won't copy it. Copy it. Copy. Now let's try pasting it to all of there we go. Cool. So this is what my command line looks like. And what it's doing is it's telling Chrome to use the local Tor relay that's running. And if everything works, I should be able to get that Chrome instance up. And I just need to go grab an onion address to browse to. That's not awful. Where is it? Okay, cool. So here's the New York Times as an onion. Crosses fingers. Praises the gods of demos. Slowly loses faith. All faith restored. Yes. Success. Went the whole the whole roller coaster there. So we are browsing to a Tor hidden service right now, obviously one that's not have a bunch of awful content on it. You could also, for example, if I go to what is my IP, it should give me something that is not, yeah, so it's like giving me some IPv6 address that I can assure you that's not me. And if I rotate identities in my Tor browser, that's going to change where Chrome goes out. Now, this is not the ideal way of doing this. Like if you're really worried about operational security, again, we are preservation people. We are not operational security experts. But for me, 99.9% of my investigations do not require me to have full Tor browser to remain pretty much fingerprint free. But I will use 2 virtual machines, not just like this. But there you go. So it does. And if you go to the dashboard, it just shows up like any other page. So I'm going to close Tor browser, close everything down here, hit the browser, or Hunchly back up here. You'll just see that there's just an onion URL where you would normally have a normal URL. Or no, there's not. Where did it go? Where did it disappear to? Did it not capture that page? You know what? I closed the browser before the damn page was loaded. It caught this. Oh, Justin. Anyway, now preserved forever on YouTube. The question was not stupid, but I did something stupid. You should, and again, on Tor, it's notoriously slow. Let the page load so Hunchly can actually capture it. And then you'll get the onion address, but you'll see it in the URL. So yeah, and we also have a daily dark web mailing list. So if you're doing dark web stuff, you can go to our website, find that at the bottom of the page. That will send you a daily spreadsheet of hidden services that we're monitoring and discovering new ones. All right, cool. Let's move along, and then I will address some other questions. I see some VM-related questions, but I will first want to cover some export stuff to make sure we get all the goodies done on time and on target here. All right, so you're done with your case, or at least for now you're done with your case. What do? Well, you should export your case and back it up. I do a case export. If I'm working on something like actively, I do 1 a day. Just at the end of the day, I come into the export menu, hit export case. I'm going to pick the desktop and hit save. Okay, so what Hunchly's doing here is bundling everything up into a zip archive, just like that mobile case. So here it is. Now on Windows, you're going to want to right click and go extract all to do all of this. Mac, you can just double click it and it properly unzips it. All right, so we got this is our case export. So everything's pretty easy to find. Our attachments are in here, all right? Pages, notes, screenshots, all that stuff. And this report right here is very similar to our mobile report, except of course it's going to have pages and photos and notes that we've taken. And this is really nice because if you need to send a case to, say, an attorney, or you need to send it to somebody who does not have Hunchly, you can send them this and it's like a little embedded dashboard. And by clicking on this link, you are viewing the local content. This does not require an internet connection. So I can actually disconnect the internet from this machine completely. I'll just show you this. I always like to play at least a couple of hops here. 79 is my high score, which I think is only like hopping one of those things, maybe 2, 3. What are we going to do here? Oh, there we go. New high score, right? No internet. Okay. So this is a nice thing. If you have to do case review too, maybe in a secure environment, you can do that. No internet required. Cool. So that's a little embedded dashboard. Very nice, very easy. And of course, at any point now, I can take this, I'm going to throw this on my backup server so I have a backup of it. And then I can import it back into Hunchly at any time in the future. Again, just using that import menu in the top left, going to import case, and I can import it as a new case or add it to an existing case. And everything will come back. So this is really useful because often you'll do an investigation today, tomorrow you write the report, and then you file your case away, and then 6 months later you got to prepare for court, or 18 months later. So you import that Hunchly case back in and go back through all your materials. It's really nice. You can literally start at page 1 in your history, and I've done this. Start at page 1 and just start walking through, and I can literally walk through page by page by page as if I was going through the investigation back at that exact point in time. All right, cool. All right, so that's exporting cases. Now, the other thing you're going to want to export is the actual pages themselves. So there's a few ways that you can do this. The first is, if you're just in here and you got a couple of quickie pages you want to pump out, right here, I've just checked them off, and I just click this page export button. That's it, that's all. Select folder, desktop, boom. Bob's your mother's brother. So we've produced PDF and MHTML of both of those files. Okay, really nice and easy. Now remember, PDFs that are converted from web pages suck most of the time. Every product out there does their best to do the conversion, but it's really hard. So we leverage Google's print to PDF functionality. We don't do this ourselves, but definitely the MHTML in general will be much, much better laid out. All right, and there are some exceptions to that. Some of the new social media sites and stuff are doing some funky things with content. If you want me to cover that after the hour's up, I'm happy to stick around and do that. All right, so that's the first method. Now, the second method is from within your page review screen. If you just want to kick out a quick PDF or MHTML file, you can do it from here. Export page, one or the other. Once again, all right. Or if you want to do a more bulk export, you can go into, oh my God, I can't run my mouse, page export, okay? And here's where having those tags and important markers are going to be really useful, because you can just select them, whatever you want to export. Maybe you just want to do social media. Maybe you want all pages. Whatever the case may be, you can do this, hit OK, pick the folder. It's going to do the same thing. It's going to export them and create folders for each tag so that it's organized for you. And now you can produce those files. All right, so 3 different methods. One's in the history view, one's in the page review screen, and the last one is in the custom export menu, where you can do a page export based on tag. Any questions about export specifically? I see some other questions that I'm going to get to shortly, but anything around export specifically so far? No? Nothing? All right. So let's briefly cover the report builder. Now keep in mind, I'm going to cover the report builder for my workflow, which is literally the only case that the report builder really works. Our new report builder is coming in a few months' time, and it is much nicer, been revamped, and will be much more impressive. So to use our report builder, here's how I use it. I generally only use it to kind of build a little intern report that I bring into my regular template. So I have a regular report template that I've used for years. That's a Microsoft Word format. So here's what I do. I often don't change anything here, okay? I'll do this only for your demonstration, but you might have an executive summary as the first section of your report. You're probably going to want to put in a title, so like Justin Site Case. Cool. Now, in the executive summary, it's just going to be text. So everything on the left is drag and drop to the right. So I'm going to drag and drop this text paragraph. All right. And now I can edit it. So I'm just going to say this is the executive summary sample. All right. Cool. Now I'm going to pull a new section in. I'll rename this evidence. Nice. Now, here's what I do. I just grab all my notes, pop them in. You can grab one by one if you like, but I grab all of them. I just grab this all notes option. Grab all the caption images, drop them in as well, and then I hit export. And it's going to produce a Word document for me. And then I open the Word document on my left, and I open my old normal reporting template on the right, and I'm bringing Hunchly content and stuff from my notes into my regular tried and true reporting template. So that's how I do it. Now, if you need to produce a quick little intern report and you want to make a PDF, you can just select PDF as an output option here. Okay? This will produce a report for you in the location you select, which will include your notes, a little table of contents, and any of the images that you've captioned that you included in your report. If there's EXIF metadata, it will also be included in there in kind of an EXIF metadata table. All right, so that's it. That is basically Hunchly front to back, from getting accustomed to capture all the way to export and report building. I'm going to take a look at the question box now, but we will not be covering any new material or anything like that. If you feel like you got to drop, I like to keep these things as close to an hour as possible, but I'll also hang out and answer questions. So for those of you that got to drop, Thank you so much for hanging out for this session today. And those of you who have questions, I am going to look at them right now. Well, first I'm going to have some coffee, then I'm going to look at your questions. So hang tight for a sec. All right. Okay, we got. You mentioned using two VMs. So this is the question. You mentioned using two virtual machines. What is your typical setup for investigative browsing? So again, if I'm doing like white collar kind of publicly traded company style research, I'm likely just in this virtual machine that you see right here or something very similar, just a single desktop doing my thing. It's more about being thorough and less about operational security and never about dark web. Like, I don't think I've ever had to do a white collar fraud or like major fraud investigation that involved the dark web. I mean, everybody asks you to do it, but I don't even remember a time that there was something on the dark web that broke a case for me. But again, that's vastly different than how cybersecurity researchers are in the dark web and how other people are using the dark web, right? So context is super important. In my case, it was definitely less dark web. So yeah, see you later, Egan. That's typical. Now, if I'm doing a two VM setup, usually I'm going to have a Linux VM as my client VM. So I'll use Ubuntu or something that's just easy to use. I don't care about having like the fancy whatever, and don't use Kali. I've been telling people this all the time now. Don't use Kali. Kali is not an investigative VM. It is not designed for web browsing. It's designed for using like scanning and reconnaissance tools. So use a different VM. And the great thing is that once you do a two VM setup for Tor stuff, you can have your Kali VM connected through Tor as well. So anyway, the second VM I use is called Whonix, WHONIX, and it's the gateway. So there's a bunch of guides out there. Our guide as well describes how to do this, but basically you have the Whonix gateway, which connects to Tor, and your other virtual machine connects to the Whonix gateway, so all traffic flows in and out of Tor. So it's a great way to protect all your traffic. You can run whatever tool you need to. It also flows through Tor. But again, all of this has operational security considerations because sometimes you might not want to run tools through Tor because you don't know who might be listening on the other side of an exit node. So there's a whole bunch of weird like nuances to doing dark web investigations that are context specific. But hopefully that's a ton of background for you, probably more than you asked for. All right, cool. Awesome. You're welcome, William. Thanks. Awesome. Cool. Can you give some general advice about using virtual machines between Mac and Windows, the setup you use as a suggestion? So what I'm using here is I personally prefer VMware. This is VMware. It's not Workstation, but it is Fusion on Mac. So VMware Fusion is what I use. On Windows, it's VMware Workstation. This allows you to create VMs. It allows you to manage VMs, snapshot them, do a whole bunch of different stuff. And it's widely supported, and the price is reasonable for what it does, all of that. Now, my team uses Parallels. Lots of my team uses Parallels. They prefer Parallels over virtual or VMware. But I also will use VirtualBox, which is open source and free. So that's what I will generally, any one of those technologies, my go-to is VMware. Like every webinar, all of this stuff, 99% of this stuff, all VMware Workstation, Fusion, same deal. So that's what I use. And then inside client VMs, usually Windows 10 and usually some form of Ubuntu. That's it. That's all I usually need. But it's really handy to get kind of comfy creating and using virtual machines and getting your head around them because it does become quite powerful where, let's say, for example, you're working on a story or you're working on a case that involves like a massive amount of imagery. Well, Hunchly is not designed for image handling, right? So you want a tool like Giro, which can help manage all of that for you. So you can go getgiro.org, I believe. I think. Yeah. So the cool thing is you can download it as a virtual appliance, right? As a virtual machine. So again, like the nice thing is you literally just download, open it up in VMware, away you go, and now you've got a whole web application with the image analysis behind it that you can use right on your own machine. You don't have a bunch of knowledge, or you didn't have to write code or like set some crazy shit up at Amazon Web Services. So even just getting some baseline getting comfortable with virtual machines is important. And we are looking at training people on some of this stuff. So if that's of interest, like our Hunchly Training Institute, we have 2 courses that are actively being developed now. Again, hope to be launched at the end of summer 2021. But if literally, like, we've been looking at like investigators computer knowledge 101, just basic stuff like virtual machines and how to use basic tech. That often I think that investigators just need a little bit of baseline knowledge on how to do some of this stuff and get some comfort. Because once you get some of these, it's really easy to, like, if you can use Hunchly, using VMware is pretty much the same level of expertise. It's just, it's got all these fancy words like virtual appliance and virtual machine and cloud and all this stuff. So definitely we're looking to help teach people that stuff. So if you've got ideas or if that is of interest, please let me know. All right, cool. What else do we got? Great. Folks gotta go. Awesome, great session, thanks. I hope you all learned some stuff about Hunchly today. Please don't hesitate to send me an email. I will just send it to everyone in the Q&A. It is justin@hunch.ly. And again, on screen, if you take a quick last look, our knowledge base is at support.hunch.ly. We have a comprehensive, well fleshed out knowledge base here. The getting started section will walk you through all of this stuff at your own pace. And I definitely suggest you check out full text searching, because our search engine is like the unsung hero. All right. Thank you so much for showing up and hanging in there today. I'm going to close it out here, and I'll be back next week with more wild and crazy data forwarding and object detection in YouTube videos using Hunchly. So less training, more me bumbling around in the dark. So hopefully I'll see a few of you there next week. All right. Enjoy the rest of your week. Bye-bye.